All right, let's dive into this. Bianca Censori. Um, we're going deep on this, folks. We've got this really fascinating report, actually,
Yeah.
from this investigative journalist who, like, really went in on her life, her whole career, her whole thing.
Right.
And I think it's really a story that's goes way beyond just Kanye, you know?
It definitely seems to be way more than just the headlines, that's for sure. She's definitely an interesting person, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And this report, I think, kind of really opens up, a window into her whole journey.
Right.
But the question is, like, what kind of journey is it, right?
Yeah.
Is she kind of like a victim of circumstance? Is she like this amazing architect? Or is she, like a really cunning, strategic person? I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And the source material really kind of paints this, like, really vivid picture of her past. It goes all the way back to her childhood
Okay.
in Ivanhoe,
Uh-huh.
which is like a super wealthy suburb of Melbourne, Australia. Yep. And we're talking elite private school education,
Wow.
like over 300,000 in tuition,
Oh, wow. Okay.
which, like, that's a pretty stark contrast to, like, some of the things you hear about her father, you know.
Really?
There are these rumors that he had, like, these alleged ties to the Melbourne underworld,
Oh, wow.
like back in the 90s.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of like this
Yeah.
this weird juxtaposition, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Of, like, privilege and, like, a little bit of darkness.
A little bit of darkness, yeah.
And
What do you think?
Like, how did that affect her?
Yeah, like how did that
Shape her?
how did that shape her worldview and kind of her drive to succeed, maybe?
Totally, yeah.
To control her own narrative.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Like, where did that ambition come from?
Yeah, for sure.
And ambition is definitely a theme that kind of runs through this whole story. So let's talk about her career, like her career trajectory for a minute.
Okay, yeah.
So she launches this jewelry line, right? It's called Nylons.
Okay.
And surprise, surprise, the, like, signature material is nylon mesh.
Interesting.
Like, how about that?
So that same nylon mesh, right,
Yeah.
that we see kind of recurring in her outfits.
Yeah.
Often kind of controversial outfits, I'd say, that she wears with Kanye.
Uh-huh.
Is that a conscious branding choice, you think?
I don't know.
Is it a way of kind of tying her past, like, to her present?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or are we looking too much into it? I don't know.
Maybe. But it's hard to ignore, right?
Yeah, it's hard to ignore that, yeah.
Like, especially when we consider, like, her role as head of architecture at Yeezy,
Right.
like Kanye's company.
Right, at Yeezy.
I mean, that's a pretty big title, right?
Yeah, that's a big one. It's a powerful title for sure. But our investigative journalist friend unearthed something kind of crazy, actually. So Censori, apparently she isn't actually a licensed architect.
Oh, really?
In California.
Huh?
And in California, using that title without having the proper license.
Right.
That's a no-no. It's a pretty serious offense,
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got this potentially, like, this fabricated architectural career. We've got this family history that's, like, shrouded in, like, secrets.
Right.
And then we've got this, like, very public, very strategic, very, like, orchestrated relationship with Kanye West.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. It's a lot to unpack, I think. Where do we even go from here?
I know, right? Like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I thought was really interesting is this whole thing with Yeezy Home.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Kanye's big, ambitious vision.
Yeah, Kanye's big, ambitious vision for low-income housing.
Yeah, remember those crazy dome-like structures?
Yeah, like those, like, super futuristic, like, dome things.
Yeah.
I
remember that. But, like, what happened to that, though? Like, whatever happened to that whole project?
It kind of just, like, disappeared, didn't it?
Yeah, it seemed to just vanish. I mean, there haven't been any real updates.
Yeah.
Since they first announced it. What was it, like 2018 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, no completed structures.
Right.
No, like, real progress, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, it seems like Censori's role in it was mainly, like, conceptual.
Yeah.
Like, like with those renderings, those, like, really attention-grabbing, like, 3D renderings and stuff.
Right, the designs, those design concepts and stuff.
The design concepts.
Yeah.
So, so it's another project that's, like, shrouded in a little bit of mystery.
Right.
But, I mean, you gotta admit, like, you can't deny that Censori and West have, like, a real talent for generating buzz.
Right, absolutely. They know how to get people talking, that's for sure. whether it's through fashion, architecture, or, of course, their very public, relationship. They definitely know how to get attention.
Their relationship is like a whole other thing. And that, I think, brings us to, like, the core of all of this.
Okay.
What is up with their marriage?
Right, their marriage. Is this like a genuine love story?
Yeah.
Is this like a strategic partnership?
Mm-hmm.
Or is this like a carefully crafted performance that's designed to benefit both of them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like we're watching like a real life, like, soap opera.
Yeah.
Unfolding right in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And Censori has basically become the face of Yeezy now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. And I feel like she's breathed new life into the brand,
Right.
But at the same time, it's kind of like she's diverting attention away from all of Kanye's, like, controversies.
Right. Like all of that stuff, like the anti-Semitic remarks and, all the financial troubles and all that stuff, like that hasn't gone away. But the focus has definitely shifted.
It has.
For sure. It's a clever tactic, I think. I mean, Censori's presence, especially in, those outfits, those daring outfits.
The nylon.
The nylon. Yeah, it strategically diverts the attention,
Right.
And it kind of creates a new narrative, I think.
Totally.
Yeah. Which then makes you wonder, like, what's in it for her?
Right.
Like, is it the spotlight? Is it the resources, the connections? Or is there something else? Is there something more calculated happening?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because it does seem like she's well, I mean, this is according to the source material, so take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
But it does say that Censori is reportedly now managing West's real estate portfolio.
Interesting.
Like all of it.
So that suggests that there's a pretty serious, like, business side to their relationship.
It does.
Right.
It does. It's not just a marriage. It's a business partnership as well.
Right. So, okay. We've got this potentially fake architectural career. We've got this family history with some, like, kind of shady stuff. We've got a very public, very, calculated relationship with Kanye West.
Right.
And then on top of that, she's, like, involved in his businesses.
Right.
Like, who is Bianca Censori?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. Like,
Yeah.
is she really in love with this guy?
Right.
Is she a really smart businesswoman and she's just, like, capitalizing on an opportunity?
Right.
Or is she a victim?
Yeah.
Is she, like, caught up in Kanye's web? It's really hard to say for sure.
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like this deep dive is like less of a straight line and more like a tangled web.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really compelling, but it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
We really only just, like, scratched the surface of Bianca Censori's story, but we're going to get deeper into it.
Okay.
So stick with us.
Sounds good. So we're back, and I got to say, I'm still kind of reeling from, like, all this stuff about Bianca Censori. It's like every time you think you've kind of, you've got her figured out, there's like another layer.
It's true. It's like peeling an onion. Every layer you peel back, there's another layer underneath, and it just keeps going,
Yeah. And it makes it really tough to separate, like, what's real and what's, just perception.
Right.
We're trying to figure out, like, okay, what are her motivations?
Yeah.
Like, what's her role in all of this?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one to figure out.
Yeah. And we were talking about that whole Yeezy Home thing before. Kanye's, big project.
Right.
Ambitious, but, like, totally stalled.
Yeah.
And it seems like her part in it was more on the design side, with those futuristic renderings and all that. But, like, what about, like, her actual contributions to Yeezy? Like, did she actually design, like, anything?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's where it gets a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
Because, she's got this title, head of architecture.
Right.
But there's really not much to show for it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
no real portfolio, no finished projects, not that we know of at least. And even the people she used to work with, like her previous employer, was like, whoa, how did this happen?
Really?
Yeah, they were really surprised by, like, how fast her career, like, took off.
Interesting.
It's almost like she's, like, more about the image at Yeezy than the substance.
Well, I mean, image is everything these days, right?
Yeah.
Especially in that world, like the fashion world, the celebrity world.
Absolutely.
And, and you got to admit, she's got that, she knows how to, like, create a look.
Right.
Like those outfits.
Yeah, those nylon mesh outfits. I mean, they're definitely something.
Yeah, they're bold. They're kind of controversial,
Yeah, they get people talking for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to, like, ignore them as like just fashion. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, yeah.
Especially with that like connection back to her jewelry line.
Right.
It feels very deliberate.
Yeah. It's like she's kind of using fashion, I guess, to like align herself with Kanye's whole aesthetic, you know?
Yeah.
And kind of push some buttons at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, is this just her expressing herself?
Yeah.
Or is it more like a calculated move, you know?
Yeah.
To advance her career? I don't know.
Right, or maybe both.
Maybe.
It's interesting though because like Yeezy as a brand, it kind of needed to like evolve.
Yeah, for sure.
To stay relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Especially with all the stuff that was going on, all the controversy around Kanye, and then Censori comes in.
Right. Right into the sand.
Brand new, intriguing figure.
Right. And Kanye is dealing with like so much backlash, right? For all of his behavior and all his statements. She kind of becomes a distraction.
Right.
You know? A way to kind of refresh the brand, attract a new audience. I mean, it's like a rebrand almost. You know? And she's leading the charge.
She's at the center of it all.
She is.
Like she's playing the role of like the muse, inspiring him, shielding him from the criticism.
Yeah.
But is that a role that she actually chose?
Right.
Or is there an element of like manipulation going on here?
I don't know. It's hard to say. But what we do know is that she's not naive.
Right.
She's not just like wandering around in this world. She's showing a certain level of like sophistication.
Totally.
You know, she's in this world of fame and power. And she's navigating it in a way that's both like really impressive,
right,
but also like a little bit unsettling.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like she's always like one step ahead. She's playing chess.
Right.
Everyone else is playing checkers.
It's true.
Don't forget, she's reportedly managing all of his real estate, you know.
Right, right.
So clearly she's got a business mind.
Oh yeah. She's not just a pretty face, you know.
Oh, yeah.
She's a force to be reckoned with. And that's what I think makes this whole thing so fascinating. It's like we're watching somebody, you know, who's she's not afraid to play the game.
Yeah.
And she just might, you know, rewrite the rules while she's at it.
So like, are we any closer to figuring out who Bianca Censori is?
I don't know. That's a good question. Is she a victim? Is she a visionary? Is she like these master manipulator? I mean, it might not be so like black and white, you know. It might be a lot more complicated than that. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what makes it so interesting. We don't have a clear answer.
Right.
And we're kind of embracing that, you know. We're embracing the fact that there's ambiguity here. There are contradictions. She's a complex person.
Yeah, it's fascinating and makes you wonder like what's she going to do next? You know, what's her next move going to be? How's she going to keep shaping her own story? Will we ever really understand, like, the mystery, the enigma of Bianca Censori?
Who knows? I don't know. But I am curious to see, you know, it's to me, what's really interesting is how her story kind of reflects, like, our whole culture, like how we are obsessed with fame and power and influence in this world. Yeah. This world that's driven by social media, by perfect pictures.
Totally.
By the way things look rather than the way they are.
Absolutely, yeah. It really gets you thinking. This whole deep dive, it feels like we're ending up with more questions than answers.
I think that's fair to say, yeah.
And some of these questions are actually about, like, a much bigger conversation.
Yeah.
Like a conversation about ambition.
Right.
About success. About what it means to be famous. What it costs to be famous in the 21st century.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're going to be looking at in the last part of our deep dive. We're going to kind of take a step back and look at like the bigger picture of Censori's story and what it tells us about how we see success, how we see power, how we see recognition in this modern world.
So, you know, we've talked about a lot with Bianca Censori.
We have.
I mean, her childhood in Australia, you know.
Right.
This whole, like, controversial thing at Yeezy. And, like, obviously the Kanye West relationship.
Right. A lot to unpack there.
Yeah, it's a lot. And one thing I keep coming back to is just how she's created this, like, persona, like this high-powered architect. But there's really, like, not a lot to actually back it up. You know?
Yeah, it's definitely a little strange, isn't it?
It's weird.
And I think it kind of shows how, like, obsessed our culture is with image. with how things look, especially now, with social media and everything.
Literally.
It's almost like it's easier to like project an image of success
than it is to actually like be successful.
Right. So you're saying like she's kind of mastered this whole image thing.
I think so, yeah. I mean, she's connected herself to Kanye West, who's, obviously a global icon.
Right.
She's developed this really bold style. And she's positioned herself as like a major player in a really high profile industry.
Right. But without like the usual stuff.
Yeah, without the traditional qualifications or even experience, really.
So she's kind of doing it her own way.
It seems like it, yeah. She's playing by her own rules. And she's definitely getting noticed. But, it does make you wonder, like, how long can that last?
Right.
Can you build a real career, a real relationship based on image?
Yeah, it's almost like she's building, like, a house of cards.
Yeah.
Like, it looks impressive.
Right.
But one strong wind and then the whole thing could just collapse. Exactly. It's a risky approach, that's for sure. And when you add in the Kanye factor, it gets even riskier.
Oh, yeah. Because that's a whole other...
It's a whole other layer
to this, yeah.
Yeah. It definitely complicates things.
I mean, like we said before, she's like the face of Yeezy now.
Right.
She's bringing in new people, kind of taking the heat off of Kanye. And she's managing his properties.
Right. So it's more than just like a surface level involvement in his business.
Yeah.
It's deeper than that. And it just makes it so hard to know, like, what's really going on? Is she being taken advantage of? Is she the one in control? I mean, it's probably a bit of both, honestly. It's probably a mix of ambition and power dynamics and maybe even some real feelings in there too.
Yeah. Who knows? Makes you wonder, like, what's she really after?
Yeah. Right. What's the end game? What does she really want? Is it all about like creative freedom? Is it about money and power? Or is it just about like being somebody in a world that's so obsessed with appearances?
Yeah. It's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
And that's what I find so interesting. Is she like this visionary who just does things differently? Or is this all gonna like blow up in her face,
right.
Only time will tell, I guess.
I think what's really interesting about this whole thing is that it kind of makes you think about your own life,
Right.
Like, what would you do if you were her?
Yeah. Would you want that kind of attention?
Yeah. Would you put yourself out there like that?
Knowing that you're going to lose, a lot of privacy.
Yeah.
that people are going to be looking at you, judging you all the time.
Yeah, it's a big question.
It's a big question. And I think Censori's story it's kind of a warning, about fame, about what people will do to be successful.
Yeah.
Especially now, like in this century that we're living in.
Right.
It's a different world.
Yeah, no, I think we've done a good job, like, really digging into this whole report.
I think so, too.
We talked about, like, all the contradictions and the unanswered questions and how, like, complicated she is. And maybe we don't have all the answers.
Right.
And that's okay.
That's part of what makes it so interesting, I think.
It does, yeah. It keeps you thinking. And I think that's what makes a story really stick with you. And who knows, this might not even be the end of her story,
Well, right. Who knows what's going to happen next?
Yeah. There might be more to come. But I think, like, the big takeaway here is that, it's good to question things.
Absolutely.
It's good to not just take things at face value.
I agree.
And sometimes the best stories, the most interesting stories, are the ones that kind of make you, rethink things.
Yeah.
Make you look at the world a little differently.
I think that's a great point to end on.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's our deep dive on Bianca Censori. Thanks for listening, everybody.